Hi, everyone. Welcome to Social Studies Online. Today's topic is on inventions and inventors. My name is Eden Cho. I'm a museum educator at the National Museum of American History. If you're logging in from a location that's currently experiencing inclement weather, we do hope that you're staying warm and safe. A few housekeeping items. Please ask any questions you have during our time here by commenting in the chat box. Our guests will they will answer them live. We do ask that you keep your personal information private. We don't need it. And all of our resources that you see here today are available on our Learning Lab page, and I'll include the link in the chat box. So let's get started. I'm going to turn over the introductions to our host for today, Orlando.
Hello, good morning, everybody. As Eden mentioned, thank you for being here. And folks, if you are in a difficult situation, know that we are concerned and thinking about you all and hoping that the weather passes soon. We do have a couple of great guests today who are here to speak with us on the topic of inventors. And the first will be Eric Hintz. And so I will give some time for Eric to introduce himself. Eric, thank you for being here with us. Can you please let us know about what your role is at the National Museum of American History, what brought you there, and what kinds of project research you are doing there?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. And thanks, Eden and Orlando. Appreciate the invitation to talk today. My name is Eric Hintz. I'm a historian at the National Museum of American History, and I work in an endowed center. It's called the Lemelson Center for the Study of Invention and Innovation. It was endowed by an American inventor named Jerome Lemelson and his family back in 1996. And so essentially, we're the part of the museum that studies the history of invention, history of technology. So I have a really fun job. I do museum things. I work on exhibitions. I've got some writing projects, working on articles and books, and I get to do fun educational programs like this. So it's great. I'm blessed. That's what I do.
Wonderful, Eric. All right. Well, and before we get started and start looking at some of the resources that you brought to share with us today, can you let us know a little bit about some of the thinking that went into the artifacts that you gathered for us today?
Yeah, as I was thinking about what artifacts to feature today, I was really thinking about the long history of invention in this country and kind of some of our preconceptions about that. Sometimes when you ask someone to imagine, who do you think of or what do you think of when you think of an inventor, you often think of someone like Thomas Edison or maybe Steve Jobs. And part of my goal today is to maybe expand our imagination a little bit about who we should think about when we think about an inventor and how we should think about what counts as an invention. So those were some of the motivations I had, and we'll definitely explore deeper on those ideas as we go through the objects.
Wonderful. All right. So folks, as you're joining us, we're going to do something that we often do, which is think through some of our objects that are in front of us, practice some visual analysis skills, and we're going to do something called See, Think, Wonder with a couple of these objects today. So Eric, I'm going to ask you, as we look at a couple of images here, what is it that you see? What do you think about what you see, and what do you wonder? Again, as we're coming into this object cold, what are some thoughts that you have around those three questions as you approach the analysis of it?
Well, I'm a guy of a certain age, so, I know what this thing is, right? But depending, if you're a music lover of a younger age, you may not know what this thing is, right? Like, if you've only ever grown up streaming music, then the idea of what this thing is and how we used to play music, I think is interesting. So maybe that's one thing. If I'm putting on the hat of some of our viewers today, is like, well, what is this thing? How does it work? And why do I need it in the first place? Like, what does it do?
Yeah, right. I mean, I too am of a certain age and am familiar with this, but I sort of, as we so full disclosure, we use this object, this artifact many times in many of our teacher workshops. And we, oftentimes we'll have conversations we see, we see plastic, we see metal, we see knobs of some kind, trying to discern sort of the parts of what we see. But then one of the questions that often comes up is really towards the wonder. Like, I wonder why we have this. Like, what is the import of this, right? So we're going to keep that in the back of our minds, and we're going to look at a couple more images so we have more context here. And so, Eric, what do you see, think, and wonder about this as we expand out a little bit?
Well, it's one of the things I see and that we can talk about, and I hope folks will notice, is there's a record now, a flat disc sitting on top of the machine, and kind of up in the upper left-hand corner, maybe like 11 o'clock, if you were thinking of it as like a clock, there's a little chalk line. What's that there for? There you go. Thank you. And why might that be important? I see beats, rhymes, life. So there's maybe a musical context. So I noticed those things. Yeah, so those are a couple things I see, and it's starting to fill in maybe some context for me. All
right, and as we're coming towards the end and seeing a little bit more, we see now our object in concert and next to a lot of other different objects with lots of more knobs and levels and pushes that we can do for, looks like, balancing left, master volume. So Eric, what do we have here? What are we looking at, and what is the import? Why did you select it on our topic of inventors today?
Sure. Yeah, sorry if I revealed maybe a little too much
no.
when you were first asking me, but I love this object. This is a Techniques turntable from 1979. So it's basically a record player, and you could see the record player on there. But why is this one important? So this one belonged to a gentleman named Joseph Sadler, but you probably know him better as Grandmaster Flash. So Flash, of course, is one of the pioneers of hip hop. Flash Sadler was born in Barbados in 1958. He immigrated with his family to the Bronx. And so in the late 70s, when he's, sort of 19, 20, 21 years old, he's experimenting with not necessarily this turntable, but like ones before it, some of his prototypes, and figuring out how to create this new art form we know as hip hop. So he was figuring out, we can take this machine that's used for playback of music and actually turn it into an instrument for making music, right? So this is about DJing. You showed some of the knobs and mixers before. It's about mixing two different records together. It's about stopping it. It's about finding that break in the music where there's no vocals, right? So that's what the chalk line is for on the record, is he would drop the needle right in the spot where he wanted the music to start playing for the break beat. So I think this is a really cool object.
And thank you for talking a little about sort of the influence and growth of hip hop. What are some other ways that we have experienced / benefited from the innovation of Grandmaster Flash, whose name we get to see right here on the record also, which I always find exciting.
Right. I think for me, as a person who studies the history of invention, I love the Flash story because, again, it expands our notion of who counts as an inventor and what we count as an invention. So as far as I know, Grandmaster Flash never received a patent or anything like that on his techniques. He's not a guy that's wearing a white lab coat or working in a lab, right? He's sort of like working in his bedroom. He's working at the park. He's maybe working at a dance club, but like, no doubt about it, he's inventing something, right? He's taking a technology and reusing it and sort of remixing it in a new way that was like totally new, created in an art form. And I think we should seriously consider that. To me, that's an invention, right? There is no hip hop as we know it without the inventions of Flash. So to me, I think it's important because it expands our definitions of invention and who counts as an inventor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric. And that will come up later on when we talk about some more of our resources today. Now we're going to turn and talk about this. And so for folks who are joining us, again, whether live or later on during the week, this what we every month in advance of the next month's Social Studies Online, we ask our subscribers to our newsletter, what do they want to know more about? And this is what won in our last month's poll. And I understand why, because I see a not crazy, let me take that back. I see an interesting doll with lots of different textures and materials combined. I think this might have been something with speaking based on this speaker looking contraption right here. And I wonder, what is it and how did this come to be? That's what I see, think, and wonder. Eric, what do you see, think, wonder? And then could you let us know what it actually is?
Yeah, so I see several of the things that you see. It's definitely some sort of doll, maybe a toy. It looks historic. It looks a little older than like current dolls. I'm wondering what this thing up in the upper right-hand corner is. Some sort of electronics, maybe. You had noticed the little, near the top of the chest, the speakers, but then it looks like there's a kind of horn up here on this. Yeah, there you go. So something about sound. I like the rosy cheeks, but no hair. I mean, it's a strange object.
So what do we got, Eric? What are we looking at?
Okay, so this is a Thomas Edison talking doll from the 1890s. So Thomas Edison, you know, when you think of the history of American invention, this may be the first name that pops into your mind. Thomas Edison had over 1,000 patents. He's probably best known as the inventor of the incandescent lighting system, and all the things that went with it, dynamos, power lines, that kind of stuff. But and that was in the 1880s. But his first really blockbuster invention was the phonograph. So this actually ties back to Flash a little bit, right? So he invents some of the first technologies for both recording and playing back music, which was really amazing and blew people's minds. And I think it was like 1876, 1877, he invents the phonograph. And at the time, it wasn't the flat gramophone style record like you had with Flash and the turntable. You had these cylinders. It was kind of like a little cylinder, and then you would turn the crank like this.
Right here?
You would record on the cylinder. So Edison, when he invents this, thinks, okay, well, what's the market for the invention? And the first one that he thinks of is business. So he's thinking, okay, well, I'll dictate letters. So instead of writing a paper letter, I can dictate a cylinder and send it, and then they can play back the dictation, right? So he's thinking of a business commercialization opportunity, but he's also thinking toys. Kids love dolls. What if we could make the doll talk, right? We could record a kid on the phonograph and embed it in the body of the doll, and then turn the crank, and then the doll talks to you.
So when I was a young child in the 80s pining for Teddy Ruxpin, that was a descendant of this doll right here. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I never got the Teddy Ruxpin, but yeah, what can we do? All right, Eric, we've got one more we're going to talk about here as we wind down our time before we bring in our next guest. And as the image pulls up here, the questions we have are, what do we have here, and why is this so innovative and important?
So it is fabric, it's textiles. Based on the shape of it, it looks like it's maybe some sort of undergarment for a woman. That's maybe all I could say. That's things that I can most easily observe.
No, same. And what makes it distinct? Why is it innovative and part of our conversation today?
So this is a prototype for the Jog Raw, the modern Jog Raw. So this was developed by women inventors, Lisa Lindahl, Hinda Miller, and also a third inventor, Polly Smith. And so this is about 1976, 1977. There's Lisa and Hinda. So late 70s, it's the fitness craze, jogging, right? It's like marathoning is becoming a thing. And as runners, it was physically uncomfortable for them to run because such a thing did not exist on the marketplace yet. And so they started messing around, and they took a men's jock strap, two of them, cut them together and re-sewed them in a way that would be more supportive for themselves when they're running. And it worked. It kind of immobilized things, made it more comfortable. And it's also really interesting at this time in the late 70s, because this is, a revitalization of feminism in the country. There's like movement towards the Equal Rights Amendment. You get Title IX is passed, which requires more equality, gender equality in athletics and publicly funded schools. And so this is sort of hitting at like a really interesting time where women's athletics is taking off. And, you know, if you go anywhere, you know, and you see women doing any kind of athletics, they're using some version that grew out of this Jog Raw.
Yeah, no, that is very innovative. Just the idea and the materials used to make the prototype.
Yes.
And I have a quick question. Did these inventors bring us anything else that we have with us today, or was this the main focus of their work?
This was the main focus of their work, and their company was acquired by Playtex, and I'm not sure where the original IP lives now. But this was one of this was probably their signature achievement, was, you know, really kind of revolutionizing women's undergarments specifically for athletics.
Okay. Well, Eric, thank you for being with us and for pushing our thinking on what invention is and who inventors are and sort of what they work with. We've got pushing the boundaries of music and culture as innovative. We also have the introduction of a talking doll, and really fashioning a brand new garment from a previous existing garment to make the lives of female athletes more comfortable. Thank you very much, Eric, for your time. We will transition now to our next guest, but Eric, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks. You very much. All right, Eden, as we bring Crystal on, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share? Anyone have any questions?
There's no questions from the public, but I actually had a question, because and you and I experienced this a lot, our intergenerational differences.
That's
a lot of the references.
Folks at home, that's Eden's code for you old, I'm young. And we have conversations about that every once in a while. So Eden, what's your question?
And a lot of the references kind of go over my head, and I have to, you know, look it up later in my office or on my phone. But, you know, I, as a product of the 90s, I don't know the Teddy doll.
All right.
So it's fair to say that, like, the Build-A-Bear dolls that I grew up with, are they also a descendant of Edison's talking doll?
Because you could put that in those little voice boxes and those. You're correct.
Yeah.
Right. Crystal, by way of introduction to yourself and to our audience, could you let Eden know first what a Teddy Ruxpin doll was, and then what your work is at the museum and what you do there?
Yes, as a person who also grew up in the 1980s, I also wanted a Teddy Ruxpin, which is basically a talking teddy bear, basically, and it's very basic description. But it was so new because things like talking teddy bears, they were so fantastic. And so that's basically what a Teddy Ruxpin was. So 1980s babies here too. At the museum, though, at the American History Museum, I am a curator and I focus on African American business history. And so thinking about invention, thinking about entrepreneurship is right up my alley. And so as a curator, I am responsible for researching and knowing about objects, as well as collecting objects, and also learning about the stories behind those objects.
Wonderful, thank you. And that's an excellent segue for some of the objects that you brought to share with us today. We are excited to hear their stories, and we'll start with this one right here. So let us know what we have.
Yeah, this is great. And so one of the areas I focus on in thinking about African American business is beauty, specifically beauty culture, and then also hair and cosmetics and makeup. But what we have here actually is as you can see, the Barber Stylus tool organizer, which was created by Nathaniel, the Bush Doctor Mathis. And the Bush Doctor, Nathaniel Mathis, is a very important, well-known Washingtonian. He was born in Washington, D.C., and he created this vest to carry all the tools of his trade, which were barbering and hairstyling. Because if you think about it, if you've ever been to the barber shop or if you ever gotten your hair done, there are lots of combs and scissors and clippers, etc. And so to make all of that easy to access, he created the vest, where you could put those tools of your trade and carry them around in quite a stylish way.
Yeah, first a couple notes. One, I appreciate that. Yes, you wear it. Thank you, Bush Doctor, for letting us know. Two, I could really use one of these in these times of COVID haircuts, because when I'm working on my son's hair, I'm constantly dropping scissors and combs as we're trying to cut his hair. So I definitely see the utility and the use for this. All right.
Yeah, definitely useful.
All right, let's move on to our next product here, the next object. As Crystal mentioned, a lot of the work that she does, or one of the areas that she works on, is beauty and beauty culture. So can you please let us know about the Beauty Blender and its significance?
Yeah, so many of you probably have seen an object of this type, either in your local pharmacy or any local store. But what you may not know is this product was created 20 years ago by a professional makeup artist, and her name was Rianne Silva. Rianne Silva, what she worked on tons of movie sets and in music videos, working with various artists and entertainers. And what she found was, as she was doing the makeup of the artists and the entertainers she was working on, she needed a tool that would help her apply foundation. Right. And so she created this original beauty blender by clipping and cutting various sponges into this shape. And so it's used to apply makeup, typically foundation, but you could use it for tons of other applications as well.
Okay. So folks at home, before I forget, whenever you see a little arrow here in Learning Lab, and Learning Lab is where we house all of our programs. So Eden has put the link in the chat so that you can access it later on. But if you click on the arrow, you'll get, the eye, you'll get more information, and you'll learn a little bit more of the story that Crystal just shared with us here from Rianne Silva and the work that she did. And so a follow-up question, we sort of get a sense of the importance, the innovation here with regard to the beauty industry, like culturally. What were some of the significances of this particular invention?
That's a great follow-up question. So one of the things to know about Rianne Silva is that she has an expertise in working with entertainers of color. And so she developed the Beauty Blender sponge while working on Girlfriends. Now, again, this is going to kind of indicate some folks' ages. It indicates mine. Girlfriends was one of the first original television shows that, number one, used high definition television, so HD. Okay. And then also it featured a cast of 4 African-American women who were friends. And the show really kind of just followed them a lot around in their lives and explored what Black female friendship looked like. And so not only was the sponge an innovation in beauty, the show was also a social and cultural innovation in terms of TV, and then also commentary on the lives of African-American women.
Yeah, and so, sorry, a little more history, because we actually just had a conversation about this maybe a week and a half ago, where we watched Blackish with our kids, and Tracy Ellis Ross is the mom on that character. And we were looking through Hulu, and Girlfriends came up, and our son was like, wait, is that Rainbow? I was like, yes, that's the first show that she was on. That's actually how we all got to know Tracy Ellis Ross. And also, do you know who her mom is? And so we had a long history about that.
That's right.
All right. So you mentioned earlier that there was sort of a process, an iterative process that Rianne Silva went through to create this, that she worked with other kinds of makeup sponges and kept on trimming and sort of working at it. And as our image loads here of the process, can you let us know like how long it took? What other sorts of innovations have occurred within this particular part or segment of the beauty industry, and what some of Rianne Silva's contributions continue to be?
Yeah, I sure can. And as the image continues to load, what you will see is the progression of the sponges in both their material and in their shape. And so what you'll notice is that and the image is being pulled up, that originally, the sponge was kind of a very small, very porous material. And Rian Silva was basically trying to decide what type of sponge and what type of shape would be best for what she wanted the product to do. And what she knew is that she wanted the sponge to be able to get into those hard to reach places like the corners of your eyes, right? Around your cheek, right? The makeup could really infiltrate your skin. And so she went through, over the course of several years, went through a lot of different prototypes and tried a lot of different materials to find that perfect material and that perfect shape. What she also learned as a professional makeup artist and attending classes is that the beauty blender, her sponge, worked best when you wet it. Right. So she also needed a material that could absorb the liquid and hold the liquid, then also mix with the makeup so that it could kind of apply smoothly on your face. And so in the end, she settled on the final material, which was that kind of thicker, less porous, but still porous enough to get the liquid in, and then the shape of an egg, right, with the pointed tip so you can get into those hard to reach spaces.
And the packaging, that's very nice.
Yes,
a nice added touch there at the end. All right, we have one more image to share here, and folks at home, I apologize. Learning Lab is slow today, but please tell us the story of this particular image here.
Yeah, I really wanted to include this image of Rian Silva and Kerry Washington, number one, to show you the people, right? The people behind this product, right? And so on your right, you see Rian Silva, and she's applying makeup to Kerry Washington's face with the prototype sponge, right? And this becomes really important, especially as we think of additional contributions Silva has made. While she was a professional makeup artist, what she would do to kind of create the foundation colors she needed was mix base foundation with tons of other materials, be they lipstick or other colors, to create the foundation color of women of color, right? And so that was a really important skill she developed. But now with her company, because of the success of the sponge, she's also created her own foundation line that has 40 shades, right? That kind of speaks to the diversity of complexion and skin tones across various women from various backgrounds. And so what you see here is her working on Kerry Washington, being very particular about what she's doing. And so that highlights her expertise, but then also her specialty in working with women of color. And Kerry Washington, she's worked with Kerry Washington for a long time.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Crystal, thank you very much for sharing this wonderful story of Rian Silva and the work that she has done and continues to do within the beauty industry, the inventions, the breakthroughs that she has made to be more inclusive of different kinds of shades that we all come in. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to ask Eric to come back on, and we've got a few more minutes together, and we're going to play a short little game called Who Said It? Now, you all have done a wonderful job, and we're grateful to have had you today to share some stories about inventors, and we're going to just see, if you know who said these things, and they're just a heads up, they're all tied to what we talked about today. So what we'll do is we're going to show you a quote. We'll give you a chance to deliberate and decide who might have said it, and we'll let you know if you were correct. Sound easy enough?
Yes. I'm afraid.
I think I'm going to end up being embarrassed.
Y'all are going to be good. Y'all will be good. It'll be good. All right. Okay. So, number one, I'd rather regret the risks that didn't work out than the chances I did not take at all.
That sounds like something cool Crystal would say, like going for it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I love the sentiment, but I have no idea who said it.
Okay. All right, Crystal. Any thoughts? Any ideas?
I want to take a guess and maybe say Flash.
Oh, I wish.
Oh,
the answer is the incredibly gifted and talented and acrobatic. Let me think of other adjectives as it loads. Simone Biles.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, thinking of the work of our women inventors and
Yes.
the work they've done for female athletes, Simone
Right.
Biles has definitely benefited from some of the work that we have talked about today. All right,
That's great. Yes.
quote number 2. Who said this? We are all born naked and the rest is drag.
Crystal, any ideas?
I have an idea, but unfortunately, the person's name is not coming up. I feel like I've heard this recently.
So describe the person, and I'll see if I can come up with the name.
Okay, the person is in entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The person has a television show that is won multiple Grammys. I mean, sorry, wait, that's not the TV. The what's the one? Emmys. Thank you.
Is this? I'm thinking. Is it RuPaul?
It
Yes.
is.
Yes,
It is
yes,
RuPaul. Thank you very
Yes.
much. So,
Yes.
for folks who may not be familiar, RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul is an entertainer, but also an interesting social commentary provider. And one of my favorite quotes that RuPaul has mentioned is, to imagine yourself and then to make yourself who you imagine yourself to be is one of the greatest things that you can do in life, right? And the idea of understanding that there are multiple possibilities of being is something that RuPaul has brought to the fore. All right, and definitely has used beauty blenders, 100%.
Yes.
All right. So next quote, we've got two more.
Yeah,
We've got
exactly.
two more.
Let's see what we got.
Let's see if we can figure out who said this. So y'all are 1 for 2 right now. You're batting
Right.
500. All right. It will soon be possible to transmit wireless messages around the world so simply that any individual can carry and operate his own apparatus.
Wow.
So I have an idea, Crystal, but I ladies first. So like, you got an idea here?
No, I'm shooting it back over to you, Eric.
Okay. I'm thinking this is Nikola Tesla because he was all about wireless transmission of power.
Well, y'all are making a great team so far because you're 2 for 3. In fact, the half Serb, half amazing Nikola Tesla is the person who said that. And what's fascinating to me about that particular quote, Eric, is that
Wow.
he said that in 1909. Right?
Wow.
So he definitely had some forethought. All right,
Yeah.
last one.
Okay. Let's see what we can do.
I don't decide to play the characters I play as a political choice. Yet the characters I play often do become political statements because having your story told as a woman, as a person of color, as a lesbian, or as a trans person, or as any member of any disenfranchised community is sadly often still a radical idea. There is so much power in storytelling, and there is enormous power in inclusive storytelling and inclusive representations. First of all, what do we think this is tied to? In terms of our objects that we talked about today. That's a clue.
Probably the entertainment,
Okay.
beauty blender, yes.
Okay.
And so when I first was hearing a little feedback, I first thought of Cicely Tyson, but then I'm thinking of Laverne Cox, maybe.
Okay. Is that your final answer?
Yep.
All right. You know what's really funny?
Yes.
You know what's really funny, Crystal, is that 2 weeks ago, Cicely Tyson was the person quoted for our Black History Month episode. So yeah, Cicely Tyson is definitely on my mind. But this time it was Kerry Washington. Well, folks, that's not bad. We went 500. If you got a hit, once out of every 2 times batting, that you'd be wanted by all major league teams.
Yep.
Same by all NBA teams if you shot 500%. So y'all did great. All right, Crystal, Eric, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Eden, who will close us out for today.
So in the comment box or the chat box is the link for the Learning Lab collection with resources from today's episode. Please join us next time for Women's History Month on Thursday, March 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And all of our Social Studies Online episodes are archived, so you can come back and rewatch anytime at the same link. Thank you to our host and both of our guests, and thank you to all of you for spending some time with us today. We hope you're all staying safe and healthy.
Super fun. Thanks, guys.
Bye, folks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.